Welcome to the show, The First Generation Mindset. Today I have Paresh here with me, who co-founded the Purna Foundation alongside with his parents when he was just 12 years old in 6th grade. In the last 5 years, Paresh has trained, coached, and mentored over 500 kids as young as 7 years old to all the way to 15 years old. Paresh's passion and belief system is to be successful in life, you must have effective communication skills. While he's truly passionate about it, and he's got tremendous success as being a national, in fact, a global speaker and leader, what he's doing on a daily basis, he's pouring into young kids, and he spends his time, effort, energy in making them more effective communicators. Paresh, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I met you early on this year. We got introduced through family and friends. And initially, I understood the concept, what you were doing. But as I've seen you do the events, coaching kids, mentoring them, training them, I'm truly inspired and I'm proud of what you've done. What I want to do today is for you to share your passion. What got you into coaching other kids? What got you into debates? And what your long-term vision is, Paresh?
Right. So initially, when we started Purna Foundation, it was out of a necessity to help the community, right? So a couple of our family friends were talking about how their kids were struggling in school. So initially, the goal of Purna Foundation was to just provide tutoring services to students nearly free of charge, right? Or to a minimal cost to them. And so basically what we did is in that initial period of like 2018 to 2019, we tutored a couple kids in math and in science in the middle school level, kind of when they were having struggles, because by this point I had already like skipped a grade in math and science. So most of my peers were already coming to ask me for help. So I had like a bit of experience in terms of how to teach children and how to like work with other students to help them progress. So I used those skills that I had, created Purna Foundation, and from there, we actually saw a lot of growth. So we also, during COVID was probably our biggest factor in our growth, because during the COVID lockdown, everyone was in online school and everyone, needed help on a variety of things. So we held free online sessions where we taught people algebra, where we taught geometry, where we taught basic science that middle schoolers would encounter. By this point, I had gone into high school, so that way, by the time COVID was ending, I was starting to enter high school. So in that time period where COVID existed and we were all in online school, I still had the opportunity to work with a bunch of students in helping them progress through their learning environment, even in spite of all the challenges that they faced at the time. And then after COVID, I went to high school, and high school is where I really started to get into speech and debate and where I started to understand like the importance of communication. And so right out of the gate, in my freshman year of high school, I started speech and debate, and I had a blast doing it. It was so much fun my freshman year, because we were novices and, we didn't really care about the results at that point. It was just about like doing the rounds themselves. And I did a form of debate called LD, which is like a one-on-one debate on morals and philosophy and ethics. And I really enjoyed that style of debate, and so I wanted to teach it to other students. So myself, one of my partners on the team, on the school team, and another speaker who mainly focused on original oratory, which is a type of like persuasive speaking. All three of us came together and said, hey, let's teach middle schoolers how to do speech and debate, because we really think that it's a great way to learn, the basics of communication. So in my freshman year, in the summer between freshman and sophomore year, we created that speech and debate camp. And we only had like 5 or 10 students, right? Because we just started out. Purna Foundation was still relatively small compared to what we have today. And so when we started that camp, even though there were only 5 or 10 students, all 5 or 10 students were really passionate about, learning about speech and debate. And at the end of every camp, what we do annually is we host a speech and debate tournament with our camp members. So all the camp members will come together. They'll actually go through the they'll actually go through the experience of what it's like to be in a tournament with actual judges that we pull from the high school and collegiate level. We start to have them brainstorm and think of ideas on specific topics that we assign to them throughout the camp. They actually build their own cases, and they, make their own speeches, and they start to memorize them, or they start to, actually build clash within each other. And so through that medium, what we do basically is we give them the opportunity to experience what it's like to be an effective communicator. We give them the opportunity to present the speeches in front of their friends and family. We give them the opportunity to debate in front of their friends and family. So they kind of have that confidence within them to actually do good. And what we saw is a lot of the students really liked it and wanted to come back the next year. So we obviously took some criticism that was there in the initial year, mainly that LD being a one-on-one format puts students against each other, but some students are significantly more disadvantaged than others, and they would prefer having a partner debate. So there's a type of debate called public forum, which we introduced the second year, and it's basically meant to be accessible to everyone. The idea is that the public can access these debates, that they can understand what's going on within them. In LD, you have all these ideas like Kantian philosophy and deontology, which are really inaccessible to people. But public forum, what it does is it kind of simplifies everything so that everyone can understand what's going on. So in the second year, what we did between my sophomore and junior year is we completely shifted to public forum. And by doing so, students had a more, engaging experience in terms of the idea of having a partner so that they could have someone to work with. But on top of that, what happened is a lot of parents and other students got really interested as well. So when we had that second tournament and the finals were being held and everyone was watching, everyone was super invested, especially because there was kind of an underdog story where one student had his partner drop last minute. So he really had to claw his way all the way to the finals, and then he eventually won. But it kind of showed everyone that, hey, this is how we can introduce communication to students through speech and debate. And so ever since then, we've been doing this annual thing where we just have students, continuously practice their skills, whether that be through making speeches or whether that be through building cases and building, effective arguments and pitting them against each other to see how those arguments play out in terms of how they communicate it, but also in terms of how they respond to it intellectually. That's been like a really big thing that Purna Foundation has done in the coming years.
So Paresh, when you were just 12 years old in 6th grade, I have a lot of friends who have kids of the similar age profile. And at that age, they're, let alone being focused about helping other people, they're not even focused about their own career. And I remember when I was 7th, 8th grade or 6th grade, I was just about going my day-to-day activity. What brings all the commitment and commitment to other people's success? Why is that important to you, Paresh?
Yeah, so I think I have my parents to thank for that, mainly my dad. Because when he was in college, in order to make ends meet, he started tutoring children in his local community. But what he always made sure to do was to tutor one underprivileged student who didn't have access to good financial resources for completely free. So that way he had access to that education outside of school that many people get in India, but while at the same time making sure that there was no financial loss to him when he was already going through a rough patch. So he continued this service all throughout college, and even despite trying to make money just to make ends meet in college, he always made sure to set aside one student that he could teach for completely free. He always made sure to set his time away for that. And so when he told me the story when I was in the 6th grade, he told me about how he had done this. And I was like, well, that's a really good idea. I think, it's a great idea to be able to help people who absolutely need it while also, helping other students who need it, but can help contribute to that one student, right? So what we did is in 2018, we applied a similar model where, I talked about how we helped tutor a few kids. But on the flip side of that, what we did is we met with a kid in India who was underprivileged and didn't have access to the financial resources needed to go to school for higher education in India. So what we did is all of the funds that we got from tutoring students here in the Houston area, we then shifted those funds to help the student in India pay for his college. And we continue to do that to this day, right, where we tutor students here, we charge them, but then all of those funds go to students abroad, right, whether it be in Africa, whether it be in Asia or other country or in other continents and other countries within those continents, right? We make sure that those students in those underprivileged situations can still have access to equitable education. And that's kind of what Purna Foundation has always stood for.
Fantastic. So your dad, what he did when he was in college, teaching other underprivileged kids, was inspiration for you that got you thinking, if my dad did that, I want to do that as well. And now you're doing it at a global level, sitting in Houston, you are tutoring kids over here. With the success you have with those kids, you're passing on that success to underprivileged kids in India. Phenomenal. Yeah. So you've had 500 kids that you and the team have coached, trained, mentored, helped them with the speech and debate. Why do you feel communication is important to be successful? What's your opinion on that?
So I think communication is really important, right? And the main reason I think communication is important is because it kind of facilitates how we come up with ideas, how we, think about ourselves in the future. So ever since, the beginning of humanity, we always had to have a need to communicate with each other, whether, that be for basic things such as like coordinating planned attacks to hunt animals for food, or whether it be to come up and cultivate the next big idea of our generation. Communication has always been an integral part of that. And the only reason we are as advanced as a society as we are today is through communicating with others, communicating our ideas, our beliefs, and by having those key discussions that we need to have in order to cultivate new ideas and new beliefs. So, when you think about pretty much everything in the world, it's through communication that is cultivated, because if someone hadn't spoke out and said, hey, I think this is a good idea, or this is what my thoughts are on, this specific practice, maybe, we would still be in a place where we couldn't have had all the technology and all the advancements that we had today. So even like, when you go to work or you go to school, you need to have an idea of how to communicate your ideas and your beliefs so that at least you as a person can be heard, right? A lot of times people feel like they aren't heard and therefore their issues aren't being solved. But a big part of your issues being solved, or like trying to solve your issues in the first place, is communication. You have to talk about it. I mean, when we look at, any revolution in the past of our humanity, all of the revolutions have had a key part being communication, communicating to those in authority that's saying, hey, this is wrong, or we want more of this, right? And so by doing that, we basically allow ourselves to be heard, allow ourselves to put forth these ideas, allow ourselves to have our issues recognized. And by doing so, we can advance as a society because we start to solve those issues. We start to act on those ideas. We start to garner new beliefs. And so that idea that everything we do, all the ideas we've had, all the, beliefs that we have, all the issues that we have solved is because of communication is honestly really key to me and is really key to what I do in Purna Foundation.
So Paresh, coaching 500 other kids takes time, effort, energy. And while you are an expert in your communication skills, why not spend the same amount of effort in your own time, in your own resources to make yourself better? Because most of the people are selfish. They want to have a self-serving agenda, make themselves better, make themselves more financially successful. But your selflessness is incredible. Why are you so different? What makes you do the things that other kids or even adults are not doing today?
I think, again, a big part of it is upbringing, right? Like my parents have told me all these stories about how to, help others and stuff like that. But I think beyond that, what it is after going through the experience of being in speech and debate myself, after going through the experience of like being in school myself, I realized that, a lot of my peers who did speech and debate or who were in school with me had struggles. And so I think seeing those experiences firsthand, right? For example, the one coach that I had my first year, he inevitably quit speech and debate because he felt like he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it as much. He felt like it was a time cost to him. And so I realized that oftentimes people aren't directly taught how impactful speech and debate can be or how impactful education can be. And so, yes, I could invest that time into myself. Yes, I could get better at, school, or I could get better at speech and debate. But I think the biggest thing for me is that rather than just myself, I want to help others explore that medium as well. I want to bring others the same joy that, I got from myself, because as a person that I hold very dear to me, one of my spiritual leaders, Pramukh Swami Maharaj, once said, "In the joy of others lies our own." And so in the joy of others does lie my own, because every time I see a student do really well in speech and debate, or it's every time I see a student bring an A back after he came to a tutoring session with us, I really enjoy that, because it meant that not only had he progressed or she progressed as a person, but it meant that I had progressed as well, that I was able to help someone else that, inevitably could go on and help others. And it's the idea of like a chain reaction, right? Where I can help them now and they can help others, and then those people can help other people. And it inevitably leads to all of humanity helping each other. And that even in a world where pessimism and like ideas of separatism is, rampant, I think that the idea of being able to spread that kindness and being able to spread the help and the love is kind of a big thing right now that everyone needs. And so I want to be able to contribute to that itself.
Fantastic, Paresh. What's your long-term vision? Where do you see your organization growing to? It's US based, you're helping kids in India. What's your long-term vision?
So the long-term vision obviously is to continue helping as many students as we can, right? So right now, yes, we have impacted over 5,000 kids, but the goal is to expand, tutoring services, for example, outside of just the Houston area. We want to expand to all of Texas and then eventually to all of the U.S. And even internationally as well. And I think a big part of what we realized through that is, especially when we were hit with COVID and everyone was on lockdown, a lot of the online sessions that we had, there were people from, all over the U.S. tuning in. For example, we had a student from New York, we had a student from California, we had a student from Michigan. And so, it kind of opened the doors to us saying, hey, all these online sessions that we have can go pretty big, and having an online platform can help us go big. But unfortunately, we haven't had the kind of continued resources that we had prior to continue doing that, because we've been focusing most of our time locally. But I think if we continue to expand our operations and continue to bring in more people to help us with our mission, I think we can definitely expand like that. But beyond that, a lot of the issues that are existing financially for students, I want to help solve that as well. So, of course, right now we're working in India and Africa. But I want to work beyond that, right? I want to work in a multitude of different countries, because in almost every country, students have, there are going to be some students that have issues that need solving, right? There are going to be, financial struggles that students have that need to be addressed. And so I think the end goal for what Purna Foundation is trying to do is provide equitable access to education for all. Whether that be equitable access to education in terms of academics or education in terms of communication, in both realms and in so many others, having equitable access for everyone is key to bringing about a more just, more better society, because only through that can we garner new ideas. A lot of people who don't have access to these educational materials may be some of the greatest thinkers that we could ever have, but we would never realize it if we never gave them the resources to, expand on their ideas in the first place. So to kind of cultivate that, next generation of great thinkers is what we're really trying to do in Purna Foundation. We're trying to make sure that through equitable access of education to all, that the students that we have and the students that will inevitably exist all throughout the world can, create new things, can find new innovations in our world, and can just make the world a better place overall.
So last 5-6 years, what have been your top 3 struggles to get where you're at today?
So it was really like a multitude of of ways, right? For example, we had a parent group chat, right, in which a lot of my middle school friends' parents were in. And so we used to send out flyers in there. We used to send out messages saying, hey, this is what we're doing. If you're interested, you can contact us. It was also through the temple. We kind of told all of the people we knew at the temple, and we kind of had the temple advertise it for us that, Purna Foundation is new and that we provide tutoring services and we're funding students in, at the time we had started funding students in India. So we just said, we were funding students in India. So the biggest struggle for us there was trying to get the word out. And just the way it was the way we overcame that was we had to, reach out to the community that we had already been in. And so I think a big part of what helped us expand was using that community that we already had, the existing resources that we already had through that community in order to, build a name for ourselves by building the reputation through who we were as people already and what communities we had been in already. Another struggle that we had was consistent, growth. For example, the speech and debate camp. Initially, it was 5 or 10 people, and then it turned to 25, and then it turned to 50 this year. But the biggest issue for us was finding those new people. So a lot of the times we had people in our community that wanted to join, but didn't know how. And so we had to go through each individual person and say, hey, this is how you join. This is how we're doing things. And there was luckily a lot of interest, but I think if there hadn't been that initial interest, we would have had to look elsewhere, and that growth would have definitely been difficult for us. Another big thing was just time, right? As most of the tutoring was done either by myself or my mom, and so, finding the time to actually work with the students, setting up schedules with the students so that they can come on a consistent basis was really a struggle because we also have our own lives too, right? We have a lot of things that we need to do on a day-to-day basis. And so trying to work with our lives and then trying to build a schedule for Purna Foundation itself was really a struggle. But over time, as we've gotten more interest from more volunteers who are willing to help, tutor these children, I think we've definitely been able to mostly kind of expand in that sense as well.
So when your goal or vision is to expand to other markets beyond Texas, do you envision this being more of a virtual platform that you're in a room with multiple cameras, multiple TVs, multiple screens, and kids are logging in at a national, global level and you teach them? Is that what your strategy would be, Paresh?
So I think in that essence, the strategy would be twofold, right? Because obviously we had seen success with the national on the national level in terms of an online space, right? As I mentioned before, during COVID, we had a lot of students come in from all parts of the U.S. But I think a bigger thing that we kind of noticed is that in-person tutoring session or working with people in person is a lot more impactful than if you work online. Because when we're online, we're through a screen, right? You can only see me through a screen. You probably only see my face and that's it. But when you get to see who I am as a person through the body language I exude, through the way I talk to you, the way my voice the way I have inflection in my voice, the way I speak in general, a lot of that is lost in terms of the way we communicate online. Because a lot of times it's either through text or it's through really glitchy video calls. But when we speak in person, we have a lot of personality to us that gets shared through the nonverbal communication that we have. And so I think even if we expanded on an online scale, it still wouldn't be as impactful as if we would expand through an in-person scale. So I think the inevitable end-term growth is, yes, we expand online, but we also have volunteers in all these different regions that can help expand these services on an in-person scale in their local communities as well.
So you shared this year you had about 50 kids sign up for your summer camp.
Yes.
Right? Walk me through your summer camp. What was it about? What did you guys cover in that camp and how long was it for?
Right. So it was a 2-week speech and debate camp that we held from June 3rd to 14th of this year. And so the entire point of it was that we had split it into 3 sections. We split it into speech, where the main focus was original oratory. So we kind of kept that same line of speech where it was a persuasive speech that students would give on a societal issue that they feel really impacts them. And so the end goal of that speech was to have a call to action, to kind of have a solution to the problem that people could invest in, and to convince people to invest into that solution.
And Paresh, this concept, was it your brainchild idea, your parents? How did you come up with what topics to cover, what to do in this summer camp?
So for speech, a lot of the times the students choose the topics themselves, right?
Okay.
Because the entire goal of original oratory itself is to be passionate within it yourself and to have a call of action that you feel is necessary. So we give the students the freedom to choose their own speeches and speech topics. So a lot of students did dress code, or a lot of students did food in cafeterias. One student even went into how biomass is not an efficient fuel and shouldn't be used. So a lot of students have like a variety of topics that they choose from, and when they start to research those topics, they really get into the core issues of that societal issue. And so they kind of learn more about how to solve these persistent issues. They get more into what the impacts of them are, and they share these with the people that come to our showcases and kind of see what we've been teaching over the years. And so that's our speech division, but then we also have two different divisions of debate. The first division is public forum. The idea behind public forum, as I mentioned earlier, was to be accessible to the public. So this one focuses more on communication. It focuses on how to share ideas, not only with your opponent, but with an audience, right? So especially when we have that final showcase, a lot of what we're focusing on how can the students, effectively convey that to an audience who probably has no idea about the topic. So for example, our coaches came together and decided that for a public forum, we should do a topic on repealing Section 230. Now, Section 230 is a section of a law that basically regulates how people can post on social media and how people can post on social platforms. And so a lot of people don't know what Section 230 might be, but through the debates that the public forum kids had, they were able to effectively share that with an audience, and then that audience can understand what that issue is and therefore understand what the overall discussion within that is. And then the final leg of the camp that we had was policy debate. And so policy debate mainly focuses on how to get as many ideas out as possible and how to enact a plan or a policy, right? So, for example, students, often employ a plan that they want to pursue on the topic, and so the topics are changing every year. And so, for example, the topic for this year was about fiscal redistribution in terms of Social Security, universal basic income, or federal jobs guarantee. And so students had to propose a plan on one of those three sectors and decide, okay, we want to expand Social Security, or we want to enact a universal basic income through a blockchain ledger, or we want to have a Green New Deal federal jobs guarantee that focuses on green infrastructure. So when these students propose this plan, the affirmative goal is to prove to a judge that the plan is good, that the plan has some sort of backing to it, that there's a reason behind it. And then the negative's job is to refute that plan, saying the status quo, or the world as it is right now, is better than what would happen if we enacted the plan. And so through that debate, they kind of have a debate similar to what policymakers would have, right? In terms of, okay, well, you're going to enact a plan, but what are the drawbacks? What are the positives? How do the positives outweigh the drawbacks? And so a big thing about policy debate is having that discussion about the positives and negatives of a specific plan. But as policy debate has evolved, a lot of it has also become how can you effectively share as many ideas as possible. So now there's a tactic called spreading, where you speak as fast as you can with enough clarity for someone to understand, but you speak as fast as you can so you can get out as many ideas as possible. So now instead of like a plan that would only talk about the benefits of, for example, a Medicare, right? Which was a plan that we had for the fiscal redistribution topic. Now you can address Medicare and overall aspects of Social Security. So now what's happening is, as students start to learn how to spread, they learn how to enact clarity in their voice. And so a lot of people think spreading is counterintuitive because, you're speaking fast. No one's going to understand you like that in the real world. What's the point? But it teaches students how to think quickly on their feet. It teaches students how to be clear when they speak. And overall, it kind of teaches students that you have a lot of ideas that you have to share in so little time. How can you effectively manage your time so that you can share as many ideas as possible?
So spreading, is that in 60 seconds, 2 minutes? How long is that?
So oftentimes the average speech in policy will last 8 minutes.
8 minutes.
So for 8 minutes, you're often speaking at 250, 300 words a minute.
Okay.
And so when the first affirmative comes up and they propose the plan, the entire plan is spread through, right? So they will speak fast through all of the plan, and basically they'll introduce a bunch of evidence that allows them to discuss more about why the plan is good. And so the biggest thing that we had with policy debate in terms of how to teach communication through it is to teach students that you have to be quick on your feet, that you have to be clear, and that you have to understand what you're talking about, even if you have to understand what you're talking about and you have to understand what the other person is talking about, even if this is like the first time you've seen this plan or the first time you've seen this negative argument.
Do you mind doing one spread right now? Any topic. Pick a topic of your choice, not for 8 minutes, maybe for a couple of minutes. Would you mind going at it?
Would you mind if I use the book as
Sure.
a way?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'll flip to a random page. Okay.
The parking situation at the actual sets building couldn't be changed. I had a certain allotment of space that could be divided into several parking spots without room for more. However, other offices and businesses along the same street also had their parking spots. I spent time going to each and every one of them, discussing my vision and what I was trying to accomplish with the set building. I knew that most of the conferences held there would be outside of normal business operating hours, so the business I was approaching would require the use of their own parking spot during those times, and I didn't stop there. Nothing will stand between me and my vision, my first generation mindset.
Damn.
Yeah, so students will do that for like an entire 8 minutes for one of their speeches.
Wow.
So
And that's called
it gets-
spreading.
Spreading, yeah, it gets really intense.
Can you actually read, or you have to speak from your mind?
You actually read, right? So
Okay.
what will happen is you'll have a piece of evidence that'll usually be like an article or a study, and then you'll highlight specific words in there that kind of highlight what the main idea of the text is, or like what you're trying to convey through the research and like the point you're trying to get across. And then you will read only the highlighted parts, so that way you're not reading like an entire article or like an entire paragraph like I did with the book, but you're reading specific parts of it.
Phenomenal. I had heard about debate, all that stuff, but not about spreading. So this past year, you had 50 kids come in. And at the end of it, some of them may have contributed towards Purna Foundation, but they actually have to pay for these classes.
A big part of Purna Foundation, again, is providing equitable access. So we never have charged anyone till date for any of our summer camps. The only thing that we did charge for was the tutoring, which inevitably those funds went to other students who were underprivileged. But for a lot of our summer camps, we try to keep it free so that, a lot of students and parents don't feel the burden of, okay, well, I have to pay this much to come here. How can I manage my finances through that? Because a lot of the people that we try to serve are underprivileged students, especially through the speech and debate camp. So we try to keep it free so that everyone can come no matter what their situation is. And a lot of the times we also try to help them find transportation or try to find a way to come even if, they have struggles with that. So there have been times where we have picked up students ourselves to come to the camp, or that we've arranged with other parents coming to the camp saying, hey, can you pick this student up on your way here? So we try to minimize the barriers to coming to our camps or to our sessions as much as possible so that way everyone can attend. But up till date, we have charged no one for any of our summer camps.
And there are other debate camps, speech camps that happen every summer. And what my understanding is they charge thousands of dollars for these speech camps, for these debate camps, and you do it out of good cause, charge $0. In fact, you even arrange for transportation. So you could easily monetize what you're doing, but your passion is to help other people be better communicators. And it's incredible. I did not know till today. It was your dad who was doing it in his younger years when he was in college, where he had struggles meeting his own financial goals, but he would pick one kid, one child, and coach them, tutor them over the college years. So while you can get financial success, but you made a commitment that you're going to provide these services at no cost. And the transportation part, another level. So this year was 50. What's your goal for next year? How many kids are you going to have in this camp?
So next year, we're hoping for around 100. We're
Okay.
hoping that a lot more people join our camps, so that way we can teach as many people as possible. But I think the goal for 100 would be to have at least 50 kids in speech and 50 kids in debate. The split between debate, preferably like mostly public forum, and then a little bit towards policy if students are willing to do that. Because usually we keep policy as kind of like a closed off thing because the barrier for entry for that is really high, and usually only high schoolers who have done speech and debate before understand what policy truly is like. And a lot of what we teach in policy is really high level. So we try to focus mostly towards public forum. So hopefully we can get around 50 kids in speech and around 45 to 50 kids in public forum. So that way, a lot of people learn how to communicate, how to argue effectively, and how to share their thoughts as succinctly and as straight as possible.
If you had no roadblocks of the capacity of the room or space where you coach these kids, do you think 250 is a stretch goal?
I think with enough time we could get to 250. The only thing is a lot of our expansion has been like pretty mundane in terms of like we try to keep a limit just so that our coaches don't feel overwhelmed, right? Because a lot of the times when you have a class of like 1 to 50, sometimes it feels like a bit much for students and it feels a bit much for coaches. So as we like expand and get more coaches, we're trying to have a system where we can have multiple coaches teach groups of students, and that either they can rotate between coaches who specialize in different things, or that we can have those multiple coaches teach the same curriculum to those students so that they don't feel left out or anything.
How many coaches do you currently have?
So right now the coaches we have vary because of the fact that a lot of our coaches are high school students. So maybe they might be on summer vacation, or they might, be graduating this year. So as of right now, we have around 4 or 5 coaches that are completely dedicated, myself included. I mainly help with coaching policy or help with coaching debate when I can. This year, I took more of a backseat and started to, more so kind of understand how other people were engaging in the camp and try to focus on how to make the camp as best as possible. So more like macromanaging and like making sure everything is going smoothly. But next year, I know I will be coaching policy, and a couple of my coaches are staying for next year. So right now we have around 4 or 5, but hopefully we can expand that to more people as more high schoolers become interested in what we do.
Is it an intentional strategy where you have only high school students as your coaches? Have you thought about, having the parents volunteer or adults volunteer the time to be coaches?
So a lot of how we run our camp is focused around competitive speech and debate, right? So it's focused around that idea of competition. It's focused around the specific structures that are already in place within competitive speech and debate. So for example, original oratory, public forum, those are different types of competitive speech and debate events that already exist when you go into high school and when you compete in speech and debate in high school. So a big reason obviously has been for us to, encourage communication. But another big aspect of why we run the camps is so that students in middle school can have like a head start on speech and debate in high school. So that way they don't feel left behind when they're in their first year. And, a lot of the students that they know are doing better than them because they've gone to like these $2,000 camps or like $5,000 camps. So, a lot of the reason why we keep it high schoolers then is one, because they actively participate in what they do, right? A lot of our PF coaches are active PF debaters. A lot of our oratory coaches are active oratory speakers. And then the second reason is because since we're focusing in that realm, it just makes more sense for the coaches to have already experienced that in the first place.
So I agree with having your high school kids be the coaches, but why not add a few professionals to the coaching strategy?
So a lot of the reason on top of that, again, is the idea of the entire camp being by kids for kids. So having students, being peer mentored by other students. But we have in recent years thought about, expanding it to having professional coaches come through. The only issue with that is a lot of these professional coaches cost thousands of dollars just to bring down for 2 weeks, right? As a lot of them could be living in Austin or live in Dallas or live, up north. But if our situation gets better and we can provide that while still keeping the cost to practically free, then hopefully in the future we can have professionals come through and actually teach, not just how to do public forum or how to do original oratory, but how to speak, how to communicate, how to use body language. We started teaching that this year, but we want more professionals to do it. So hopefully in the future we can have that as an option. But as of right now, the main reason we haven't is just due to budget and time constraints.
So while you see the value, cost is a concern over here. What's your strategy or thought process where certain camps are at no cost, but kids are given the opportunity that you can bring a professional to speak and coach them for 2 weeks, but the cost is X dollars. And it's basically a Passover cost, bring the speaker. What are your thoughts on that?
I think while it would be a good idea on paper, right, to either have a cost or bring a professional, I think a lot of people who we try to access, again, which are those underprivileged students, may not have access to a professional that they can bring, or may not have access to being able to pay those costs or bring their own form of transportation. So that's kind of why we've not held a contingency on joining the camps, mainly because we want as many people to access it as possible. We've thought about it in the past, but obviously it doesn't really align with our goals of trying to open it to as many people as possible.
So Paresh, I have a question over here. And this is where you probably have seen more being in high school, being in middle school. And I didn't go to high school or middle school in America. But when I think about underprivileged kids, and I think about underprivileged kids in India, and your definition of underprivileged kids in America, I believe it's very different. An underprivileged kid in India probably walks to school, may not have the right footwear, may not have the right books or tools to be successful. Whereas when in America, public schools are free. And most kids, even my kids, go to a public school, don't go to a private school. So education is essentially free. So when you say underprivileged kids in America, how do you define that? What's that line?
So, I go to a Title I school, so I kind of see a lot of the spectrum between how some kids could be very privileged and how some kids could be very underprivileged. But I think the way I define underprivileged is like if there is an inherent barrier to doing something, right? Say like you wanted to go in a speech and debate camp, but there's the inherent barrier of cost or even transportation or even, having access to like food and water. I think any of those barriers within of themselves, to me, defines underprivileged because you can still, have a good financial situation and be underprivileged if, the finances aren't handled properly or if there's a shortage of like potable water in your area. So I think to me, underprivileged is defined as like a lack of access to any resource that is like necessary to either participate in activity or just for basic survival.
So Paresh, I agree with you, and that's relevant to kids in India, potable water, transportation. But where we live in Houston, and I've been to some of your classes, I've just sat in for a few minutes, I see kids in your class with iPhone 13s, iPhone 14s, iPhone 15s. By no means they're underprivileged. I know a lot of parents who send their kids to your camps. So I don't think cost is a concern for them. I'm sure there are kids in your camp who truly have the financial barrier. They can't afford to pay $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. But why not have certain number of seats in your camp which are reserved for the truly underprivileged or kids who don't have the financial means? But the kids who can afford, or parents who can afford, why not have them pay and then bring a professional speaker or use those funds to allocate them to kids in India or Africa who truly are underprivileged? What are your thoughts on that?
So it's something that we definitely have thought about in the past, right? We've thought about, well, what if we, had a certain number, like you said, what if we had a certain number of seats for underprivileged students, and then for the rest of the students, they would have to pay an initial cost. I think another big barrier to that would be a lot of parents sometimes don't want to pay, right? It's not that they can't, it's that they don't want to, and that it becomes an inherent barrier for them, like, oh, if I have to pay for this, then I don't want to send my student to this. Even if the student could greatly benefit from it, right? Sometimes a lot of parents have the line of thinking that, we could pay for it, but we might not want to just to save on our own costs. And even if the student really wants to go, the parents are discouraged from sending their kids in the first place. So, yes, while a lot of these people do have the means to pay, I think the biggest concern for us is making sure the students can get there anyways, right? And not have any barriers, including their parents, right, stopping them from coming in the first place. So that's why we kind of keep it free even today, is to ensure that pretty much every student can come, regardless of, whether or not their parents can pay or are willing to pay.
So while I appreciate your commitment for making the service free, coaching for free, I do have a difference of opinion, Paresh, where, I worked in corporate America, then I became a licensed realtor, I sell homes for a living, and I truly believe, Paresh, that cost is only a concern when there's lack of value. And maybe your journey of getting from 5 kids to 50 kids has taken a few years, but I've seen you in action. I've seen your coaches in action. I've seen the results of these kids speaking in front of a room full of people, and they are incredible, incredible speakers that you've groomed them to be. And if that means that next year you have 50 kids or 100 kids, the number is not that important, but there's a cost and time, effort put in. All the effort you're putting in over here is to raise money for the truly underprivileged kids in India or Africa who do not have the means to even hire a tutor. So again, we can have an offline chat, but I believe that having certain of us who are truly underprivileged, have them write an essay or give a speech, have them share. And if they show off with the iPhone 13 or 14, I will disqualify them. If you can have the luxury of having an iPhone, but and you have all the expenses, but you don't want to commit to your own success, I also believe, Paresh, it's skin in the game. Whether it's $1,000, $500, or $10. When you get someone to financially commit to that success, they're more aligned to doing that. I have 2 young boys, 8 and 9. And anytime we go out to a store or anywhere, and my boys say, you know what, I want to buy this, I want to buy that, and I tell them it's $10, $20, $30. And me and my family, my parents, give my kids, money here or there as a stipend or not stipend, just as pocket money. And I tell them, if you want this toy, it's $20, and you really want this, it's going to come out of your piggy bank. They think twice if they really want that or don't want that. So I believe your mission vision to provide coaching, mentorship to underprivileged kids, phenomenal, fantastic. And I'm sure there are underprivileged kids in America who cannot afford it. But the ones who can afford it, they should pay, because what you're doing is phenomenal. And it's not that you're taking the money into your bank account, but that money is being funneled to underprivileged kids in India. In closing, Paresh, I know you said between now and next year, your goal is to get from 50 to 100 people, and the barriers are finding the right coaches within the organization who are student-based to coach them. But you're also open to the idea of bringing national speakers or coaches who charge a fee to doing that. So my commitment is between now and next year, we'll sit down and strategize more. What can I do to help you find better coaches, sponsor them, whatever we have to do. But if I had to set a stretch goal for you, let's get from 50 to 250 next year. And whether you need, the whole of my building to have multiple camps, I'm committed to doing that. Paresh, if someone wants to reach out to you or your organization, maybe contribute to your great cause or have their kids be in your camp, how do they reach out to you, Paresh?
Right. So you can go to www.poornafoundation.org. That's POORNA foundation.org. Through there's a way to contact us. We have a contact form that you can fill out. We have a bunch of our volunteering and mentorship opportunities are also there. And of course, all of our camps are on there as well. The way we release our camps is through our website itself. So all our registration links for all our camps are on the website. And so by that, anybody who wants to join the camps can just go to the website and see what camps we're hosting and, when the registration links opens and how to register.
Fantastic. That was Paresh. Incredible story, inspirational, to be proud of what he's accomplished at such a young age. Even when he was in 7th grade, when he was just 12 years old, he had a commitment of making other kids more effective speakers. And over the years, he has helped over 500 kids all the way from 3rd grade to high school be effective communicators. This past year, he coached, mentored over 500 kids. Next year, actually, this year your camp was 50, but over the years, you've done 500 kids. My stretch goal for Paresh is next year, we want to have a camp in Houston with, if not more, 250 kids. I want to help Paresh find the right coaches, mentors at a national level, bring them in. I'll help him find sponsors because what he is doing is incredible. 10 years from today, 20 years from today, or even 5 years from today, we want to see Paresh at a global level impacting other kids who are underprivileged, who do not have the financial means of being educated or getting tutors. Proud of you, Paresh. What you've accomplished at such a young age, in such a short period of time, is inspirational. Thank you for what you're doing for our community and for all the kids in our market.
Yeah, thank you so much for your support over these past few years, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Paresh. Thank you.